West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
So this morning, police are providing extra security for those involved in the Manhattan case against Donald Trump, following a string of unsubstantiated threats. According to two sources familiar with the matter, Judge Juan Merchan and his family have received multiple threats since the hearing on Tuesday. The threats have also reportedly continued against Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg and his staff. Last month, a concerning letter with suspicious white powder, which was later found to be non-hazardous, were sent to the DA's office. Trump has escalated his rhetoric toward those involved in the case in recent weeks. And while he didn't mention anyone by name on his social media site yesterday, he did blast the, quote, radical left lunatics, maniacs, and perverts that he says had him arrested.
Wait, that's interesting. Now, what are perverts? What's this case involve?
So, this case involves hush money to a porn star, which, by the way, if I could just frame calmly, but, you know, I don't know any other candidate who pays off Playboy bunnies and porn stars where that's not something that everybody goes, stop, whoa, like, does this campaign continue or whatever? He has normalized things that, are fairly unseemly.
For evangelicals, that he's illegally sending hush money.
I mean, we're all like rolling past that.
He's illegally sending hush money to Playboy bunnies and to porn stars. And
that's an aside.
And he's talking about perverts. Again, I guess this is, projection or confession. I don't know exactly what it is, but again, you do wonder, like, evangelicals continuing to support this guy. I know the numbers are supposedly dwindling, but when they have a choice, and somebody like Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley or all these other people to continue but lined up behind him is really, really crazy. I come from this area. This is my community, right? And these are some people who would like not let their children listen to rock music in high school, right? Because it was Satan's music. And now they're going, oh, Donald Trump, porn stars, Playboy models. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, go Donald. Fight for us, Trump. Fight for our rights. It's really, they've twisted themselves in knots. And now, I would just say, a charge that begins maybe weaker legally, but a charge that begins with a payoff to a porn star and a payoff to a Playboy bunny weeks before a presidential election to keep that hidden. That's actually not the best case, Willie, for evangelicals to once again have to walk through that moral minefield to somehow justify supporting this guy, and in some cases hold him up as some secular idol, like it's a cult. It's really sick.
What's the old line we've been hearing, Joe? Both of us, Mika, all of us for the last 8 years. Look, we elected a president, not a saint. And he's going to go fight for us. And we're willing to look the other way because he did get us 3 Supreme Court justices and Roe versus Wade was overturned. So all the things we get from Donald Trump are worth all the things that come with Donald Trump. But is worth.
But Willie, that's not what they said when Bill Clinton. I know, but that's not what they said. All I heard when I was in Congress and Bill Clinton was president was, "How dare you not impeach him every day? How dare you? How dare you? You can't be president if you don't have character." Every Republican, every evangelical, every conservative, they said it repeatedly when character was king. And what's his name's book of values or whatever it's called? Are you kidding me? And now those hucksters are first in line defending him, pretending as if everything they said when Bill Clinton was president of the United States no longer is on videotape. It is on videotape. It is in books. We got it. And they're all liars and hypocrites.
It is worth stopping once in a while. We've so internalized this Stormy Daniels story. It's stopping and remembering what we're talking about here. I mean, allegedly, that he's alleged to have done in this case. And Jen, there have been so many lines crossed along the way that people sort of just keep moving along and go, there goes another one. For me, it started when he criticized John McCain way back in July of 2015. And everyone said, well, you can't criticize John McCain. He's a war hero. You can't mock what he went through. And his poll numbers started going up, and he didn't look back from there. And from there, line after line after line have been crossed, and people who support him are happy and willing to look the other way.
I remember that moment. I was like in Iowa with Hillary Clinton, and then when I saw him said that, and I was like, okay, this is it. Right. And then when it wasn't, you're like, this guy is in this for that. He is tapped into something new, and he's in it for the long haul, and there is no bottom. And every day he reminds us how there is no. Every day he does remind us how there is no bottom. But with the evangelical voters, I've talked to them. They support Trump. They're, the sanctity of life, abortion, that is their thing. But they're not that, a lot of them are not that comfortable with it. If someone would push back, if a Republican would say, you saw just like on Fox News, we saw Republican supporters on Fox News say, I don't like it when Trump says defund the police. Just because they like Trump doesn't mean they like everything he says. And if a Republican candidate would actually talk about the substance of the Stormy Daniels case and say how uncomfortable they are with it, it might have a resonance with the Republican voters, but no one is willing to do that.
No one's willing to do that. Every Republican, including those challenging Trump for the nomination, that when they talk about the case, it's simply to attack Manhattan DA Bragg. And we have members of Congress now trying to use official powers to try to investigate Bragg and try to strip him of his funding. They're not going to do that. There is probably an opening here for someone to move in, even on the evangelicals who, yes, largely still support Trump. But there's been some good reporting recently about some unhappiness about how Trump, frankly, has walked away a little bit from his Supreme Court picks who helped overturn Roe v. Wade. Trump has decided that's not politically beneficial. And we, of course, have seen time after time that perhaps it hasn't been, including in Wisconsin just this week. But the evangelicals may be not so happy about that. But he is still, we see his poll numbers continue to go up. He is by far the front runner here. But with his latest comments here, Willie, about defunding the police, let's also think about who that puts in a really uncomfortable position. A lot of Republicans in the House, particularly those who won those Biden districts, those are the ones that tipped the House to Republicans last time around. And they now have to come back to their voters and say whether they support this call to defund federal law enforcement when, for so many Americans right now, crime is a real concern.
And Willie, what's so fascinating is about Trump. Trump is, and the pro-lifers know this. Evangelicals say, oh, well, we'll look past the porn stars, we'll look past the Playboy bunnies, even though it makes us complete raging hypocrites for what we said about Bill Clinton. Complete raging hypocrites in front of our children, in front of our families, in front of the preacher, in front of the people we go to church with. Makes us complete hypocrites because they remember what we were saying about when Bill Clinton was president. Oh, character matters. Character is king. If you're if you don't have character, how in the world can you run this country? We're a country of this and that. It's all they said. It was nonstop. They looped throughout the 1990s about Bill Clinton's character. And now suddenly they say it doesn't matter. And now the justification is, well, but at least he's pro-life. Did they not hear this same guy? Did they not hear him blame pro-lifers for the losses in 2022? Yeah. Did they not hear how he was freaking out when he heard that Roe v. Wade might be overturned after the leaked case came out? Like, it was Donald Trump who was freaking out because he's been pro-choice his whole life. This is just like birtherism and everything else. He took it on board. He didn't mind being a racist. He didn't mind trading in all of his worldviews to get the Republican nomination. But this guy freaked out when he heard that Roe v. Wade may be overturned. And so now they're like, okay, well, he was with a porn star and a Playboy bunny, but we're still with him because of abortion, because he agrees with us on. No, he blamed them for the 2022 election. He blamed Roe's overturning for the 22 election. I'm sure he'll blame it for what happened in Wisconsin as well.
As you're saying that, Joe, when he decided to become pro-life, I'm remembering the moment with Chris Matthews during the 2016 campaign in that town hall when Chris asked him, do you think women who get abortions should be punished? And you could see the gears start to turn. What's the right answer? What do people say to this? And he said, yes, women should be punished. We know he didn't necessarily believe that, but he was reaching and searching for what he thought was the right answer.
It is Thursday, the 6th of April of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Oh my. Speaking of spicy, it looks like that Mussolini wannabe DeSantis in Florida has gone after Rebecca Jones and her family once again. He sent his goons to arrest their 13-year-old son for sharing a meme about cops pretty much not doing anything during a mass shooting. And apparently that was a threat against law enforcement, and they arrested the kid, took the kid away from Rebecca Jones and her family, to the point, and she was so intimidated, she sent her husband, and I believe they have a 9 or 10-year-old kid, she sent them out of state for their own protection. All right. I don't know what it is about these groomers going after our kids. What is it? They just never stop. Idaho is going to build a wall around the border of their state to keep girls from leaving in case they might want to have an abortion. What are they going to do? Have pregnancy sniffing dogs and border guards all over around the perimeter of the state? Not all the perimeter. They'll have, guard shacks every quarter mile. Little sort of zone, the killing zone. This is where we're going to mow you down if you try to get to the wire. Okay. Tennessee is calling those kids who are survivors of mass school shootings terrorist insurrectionists. You gotta be a real sick mofo Nazi to think survivors of school shootings are the enemy. What is wrong with these people? I'll tell you what's wrong with them. It's what had been wrong with them from the very beginning. They never cared about family. They never cared about social order, except for being able to order whatever is going to be part of the social realm. As long as they're doing the ordering, that's the only kind of order they want. Yeah, there's two tiers of justice in this country, Marge. How is it that Trump can get away with what he's getting away with? Oh, they think it's all great fun. We deserve it. Our cities stink. Well, I've been in rural America, and I got to tell you, the paper mill smells worse. Okay. In fact, I mentioned that if you've ever lived near a paper mill, New York smells like gardenias. I'm just saying. Live near the slaughterhouse? Yeah, I wonder how many porcine slaughter yards there are around Marge's place. Well, I don't know. She actually comes from some moneyed family, so maybe they don't have the pig pens nearby. Maybe they don't. But I got to tell you, driving around smelling cow shit and pig shit and chicken shit, some people like that. Some people do. Just like in the city, some people like the smell of steaming hot dogs and diesel. Maybe they do. Gives them a feeling of comfort and security. Oh, I am home. Steaming hot dogs and diesel. Other people like to smell pork shit. It makes me feel like I'm back home. Yeah, I bet. But they're coming after our kids. And they're going to use our kids as shields. Mm-hmm. I guess to protect themselves from, well, unbelievable. And apparently they're going to get away with it once again. Trump isn't being held accountable. He's been making these threats against the judge, the prosecutor, their families. They're doxing the judge's daughter. Give me an effing break. They're coming after the kids. They always come after the kids. Let's go after Hunter. Let's go after Bo. He can't protect himself. He's dead. Mention anything about the Trump kids, and you just hate Trump. Yeah. So? Does that preclude us from being able to criticize the effer? There's a reason for our hate. I don't know if I would elevate it to hate. An extreme dislike. How about that? I've extremely disliked Donald Trump for a very long time because he's a, conspicuous consumer. Fat cat, spoiled rich boy. A libertine. He's supposed to be the toast of the town? No, in his own mind, he was the toast of the town. I went to Studio 54. I'm all totally cool. No, you're not. Jeez. Okay. Then you got Clarence Thomas. And I don't think it stops with Clarence Thomas either. I'm telling you. They got Clarence Thomas in this ProPublica report. I'm curious about Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Amy, Alito. Please. 2 tiers of justice. Decades and decades of Clarence Thomas taking largesse from, well, I call them Nazi Burgermeisters because that's what they are. Jetting around, private jets, private yachts, cigars at, rich fat cat retreats. When I saw them sitting around having cigars out in the woods, it reminded me that the annual, I believe they still do this, maybe they don't anymore, maybe it all burned away, but their there was an annual meeting at the Bohemian Club in Sonoma County of California every year. Right-wing rich fat cats going there running around nude in the forest. And when they weren't nude, they dressed up in drag. And I did mention I don't want them reading to my kids, that's for damn sure. Not because they're dressed up in drag, but what a bunch of hypocrites. Sick mofos. And they're coming after the kids. They come after the kids every time. The more innocent, the better. Am I ranting? I don't know. I think I'm just releasing. I'm venting. Yes, that's what I'm doing. I'm venting. All right. The venting is over. What do we have in store for you today on the rest of this salon that we call West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, as we begin in the Bistro Cafe part of that salon? And we already talked about the extra security that the judge, prosecutors, any court officer, they're going to dox them all, you know. Yeah. They say unsubstantiated. The cops call them credible violent threats. Let's be clear about that, too. On the rest of the menu, a pair of Oklahoma jailers got probation after torturing inmates by playing Baby Shark on repeat for hours. What do they think that was? Guantanamo? The sheriff of one of Maryland's most populous counties was accused of illegally obtaining machine guns so a gun shop could rent out the weapons for profit. And participants in a Department of Defense training exercise at a Boston hotel entered the wrong room and mistakenly detained a guest instead of the person assigned for the role. Oops. I see a lawsuit coming on. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Switzerland will end its auto import tax exemption for electric cars. You know, that's going around. And coal use has climbed worldwide, despite promises to slash it. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and we thank Kelly for doing so. Across the page to the left from that chat room link, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon page. If you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, and if you could send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink, for instance, if you could send those funds to us once a month, we're able to pool those funds with funds from like-minded folks like you, and that way we're able to pay down a big chunk of the bills that come in monthly and throughout the year, and all the other costs that are associated with running this powerhouse of resistance. And we thank you for your generosity, and we give a little pre-thanks to those who may be so generous in the future. Thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, and Spoutable, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter, Mastodon, and Spoutable at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime, and I try to get that linked up on social media, but I certainly do when I get the diary for the podcast out. But regardless, the show notes and links diary is where you can get linked up with the actual original articles that we riff from here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. All right. You know, in the earlier rant, I failed to mention a couple of things. Well, I alluded to the kids in Tennessee protesting that they don't really want to be killed in their classrooms anymore, and how the Tennessee Republicans called them. I believe it's the Speaker of the House called those kids and their moms and dads terrorist insurrectionists. Yeah. Well, I lifted my head up just ever so briefly, and it looks like the three reps who stood in solidarity with those kids and their parents will be voted out and expelled from their duly elected seats. By the way, it's because that's the kind of power that the Repugs think that they have, and they're going to wield it because that's the way they are. And they're so beholden to the gun industry that they're just willing to go ahead and tell those kids, stop being so spoiled. Don't you know my gun rights usurp your right to live? Your pursuit of happiness supersedes my pursuit of happiness, then I'm holding the gun, and I'm very happy. You're not? Too bad. That's what they become, folks. And anybody who says, maybe we don't want to be shot by your guns anymore, they're going to be considered terrorists. You want to save the earth from the poisons of the local chemical plant, you're going to be called an eco-terrorist by the cops, and they are. Survivors of school shootings will be tracked for their potential to usurp and upset the prevailing order. And the prevailing order is that those who have the guns determine what polite conversation is. Okay. Yeah, I said a couple of things. Oh, and the other thing that got my craw was the supposed progressive lady in North Carolina who decided overnight to change her party affiliation so that it can give the GOP a supermajority, veto-proof majority. It turns out she'd been sleeping with the Speaker of that House. And instead of just quitting, she's going to join the other side. Sounds to me like she harbored these sentiments long before she started banging the Speaker of the House or the Speaker of that legislature. Also, she got big-time bucks from Emily's List. That sounds like defrauding someone to me. This is how they win. They can't win without cheating. They can't win or get ahead without committing crimes. And they still are, they just still keep coming after our kids. I'm tired of it. All right. Enough of that rant. Let us now get into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And it's out of the Washington Post by Kyle Melnick. In 2019, inmates at an Oklahoma jail say they were led into empty rooms by correction officers and forced to listen to the children's song Baby Shark for hours at high volume. Now, 2 of the officers have been punished. Last week, Gregory Cornell Butler Jr. and Christian Charles Miles each pleaded no contest to 3 counts of cruelty to a prisoner. A judge in Oklahoma County District Court banned Butler, age 24, and Miles, age 23, from working in law enforcement during a 2-year probation term. Boy, that's pretty young. They were really young when they were forcing people to listen to Baby Shark. Both officers were also named as defendants in a 2021 lawsuit, which is ongoing. An attorney representing 4 former Oklahoma County Detention Center inmates who claimed they were tortured by the officers said he was content with Miles and Butler's sentences in the criminal prosecution. The fact that they are not allowed to work in law enforcement in the future is important, Daniel Smolin told the Washington Post, and it is impactful because it means they're not going to be able to torture people in the future in a jail setting. You can torture them outside the jail setting now. Lance B. Phillips, Butler's attorney, said his client wanted to avoid a jury trial, citing concerns that ongoing problems at the jail might influence the outcome of the case. 16 people died at the jail last year, and so far, according to local TV station KFOR, 2 have died this year. Miles' attorney did not respond to a request for comment, but told the Oklahoman that the officers were simply trying to maintain order at the jail without much leadership from the top. He told the newspaper that the children's music was meant to calm inmates, basically like a timeout. Christopher Raymond Hendershot, a former lieutenant at the jail, was charged with 5 counts of cruelty to a prisoner in relation to his supervision of the officers accused of playing Baby Shark. 4 of his charges were dismissed yesterday, Wednesday, and the district attorney's office has filed a motion to dismiss the final charge, according to court documents. James said he was prepared for trial, but there was scarce evidence connecting Hendershot, age 52, to the allegations. I started to kind of wonder why Hendershot was even charged, James said. Butler, Miles, and Hendershot were charged by the Oklahoma County District Attorney's Office in October of 2020. The affidavit stated that Butler and Miles caused, quote, undue emotional stress on the inmates who were most likely suffering from physical stressors, end quote. Butler and Miles resigned from their positions and Hendershot retired. In November of 2021, 4 inmates filed a federal lawsuit against Butler, Miles, Oklahoma County Sheriff, and other county and law enforcement officials. The plaintiffs have alleged that in 2019, jail officers handcuffed them to a wall and forced them to stand in an empty room while staffers blasted Baby Shark for up to 4 hours at a time. The lawsuit alleges the officers' actions were enhanced interrogation and a torture tactic. Baby Shark was released in 2015 by Ping Fong, a Korean children's entertainment company, and it exploded in popularity. A YouTube video of the song, with its repetitive and catchy lyrics, has more than 12 billion views. In the lawsuit, a psychologist said the song's high pitches can be physiologically harmful to hear. And in 2019, officials in West Palm Beach, Florida, played the song to steer away homeless people. And even some parents have been bothered listening to it. And that's no do-do-do-do-do. Dan Morse and Katie Metler of the Washington Post brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. The sitting sheriff and chief law enforcement official in one of Maryland's most populous counties was accused in a federal indictment of conspiring with the owner of a gun shop to illegally obtain machine guns by using official police credentials so the shop could rent out the weapons to make money. Frederick County Sheriff Charles Austin Jenkins, who has led the agency since 2006, was charged with conspiracy and making false statements to acquire the machine guns. And prosecutors with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland announced yesterday, Wednesday, Robert Justin Kropp, owner of the machine gun nest in Frederick, faces the same charges. The indictment also accuses Kropp of illegally possessing 7 machine guns. Prosecutors say Jenkins, age 66, and Kropp, age 36, coordinated to unlawfully purchase machine guns and falsified multiple documents on the Frederick County Sheriff's Office letterhead requesting machine guns for evaluation and demonstration to the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. Law enforcement and the military can request demonstrations of the highly regulated weapons for possible purchase in a process that involves the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Though the letters requesting the demonstrations were signed by Jenkins, the indictment says, Kropp had asked Jenkins to submit the letters so Kropp could obtain the guns and rent them to customers. In 2018 and 2019, the indictment stated the machine gun nest made more than $100,000 in profits from machine gun rentals alone. Frederick is Maryland's largest county by geographic size and sits along the Pennsylvania border about 50 miles north of D.C. Jenkins was most recently reelected last year. The Frederick County Sheriff's Office is the main law enforcement agency for the Maryland jurisdiction of roughly 270,000 residents. Hours after the indictment was announced, the Sheriff's Office held a news conference indicating Jenkins will remain in his position for the time being. Associated Press staff bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Participants in a Department of Defense training exercise at a Boston hotel entered the wrong room on Tuesday and mistakenly detained a guest instead of the person assigned to the role of the person to be detained, according to the FBI. The mistake happened about 10 p.m., with the Boston Division of the FBI helping the U.S. Department of Defense in conducting the Defense Department exercise. The exercise was meant to simulate a situation that personnel might encounter during an actual incident. Based on inaccurate information, they were mistakenly sent to the wrong room and detained an individual, not the intended role players, an FBI agent said in a written statement. Thankfully, nobody was injured, they added. A Department of Defense official said the department apologizes to the person affected by the training exercise, you would think. The training was meant to enhance soldiers' skills to operate in realistic and unfamiliar environments, like rushing a hotel room. The training team unfortunately entered the wrong room and detained an individual unaffiliated with the exercise, the statement said. The Boston Police Department responded to the scene and confirmed that it was indeed a training exercise. The safety of civilians in the vicinity of our training is always our number one concern. We are reviewing this serious incident with our partners, and no further details will be released at this time. The FBI called safety a priority for the agency, and as law enforcement partners, we take these incidents very seriously. The FBI statement said the Boston Division is reviewing the incident with Department of Defense for further action as deemed appropriate. A spokesman for Delta Airlines said the airline was looking to see if anyone from the airline might have been mistakenly caught up in it. We are looking into reports of an alleged incident in Boston that may involve Delta people, the spokesperson said in a written statement. We have nothing further to share at this time other than to reaffirm our commitment to ensuring the safety and well-being of our people. I bet. That sounded scary. All right, let us get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Hey there, and welcome to Cosmos Quickly. This is Lee Billings. Today we're talking about the curious case of Oumuamua, which became the first known interstellar visitor to our solar system when it swooped by Earth and around the Sun back in October of 2017. I'm joined by our news reporter Megan Bartels, who just wrote a story on a fresh study about this mysterious object and talked to one of the researchers behind it. Hi, Megan.
Hi, Lee. Happy to be here.
So, Oumuamua dropped in on all of us more than 5 years ago, and it didn't really hang around. After slingshotting around the Sun, it soared back on a trajectory to interstellar space. Astronomers barely got a chance to study it. It's long gone. Why are we still talking about it?
Well, Oumuamua was really weird. Astronomers weren't sure if it was an asteroid or a comet, and it was strangely shaped, long and thin like a cigar, or maybe flat and thin like a pancake. And it seemed to speed up on its outward journey in a way scientists struggled to explain.
Hold on, pump the brakes. Speed up?
Well, as it traveled away from the sun and slipped away from our star's gravitational grip, its departing velocity was faster than expected, almost like a driver of a car hitting the gas while coasting up a hill. Scientists call that non-gravitational acceleration.
Non-gravitational acceleration, got it. And that's weird because why?
It's not that weird, actually. Comets do it all the time when they come close to the sun. Sunlight warms their ice, which turns to gas and jets off the surface, a bit like a rocket.
Got it. But usually, you can see that gas or the dust trail. That's why we see comets in the sky close to the sun. And we didn't see any of that with Oumuamua, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe this explains why scientists keep offering these wacky, out-of-left-field ideas about what caused the acceleration in the first place. You know, maybe it was a big dust ball held together by electrostatic forces, a bit like a supersized version of the dust bunnies under your couch. Maybe it was a huge iceberg made of solid hydrogen, or maybe it was a derelict alien starship. Some folks have said all these things. To be clear, all of these we've never ever seen before, as far as we know. We don't necessarily have good reasons to believe any of them exist.
Exactly. And so in the years since Oumuamua's visit, scientists have been wrestling with that puzzle. I talked with one of them, Jennifer Berkner. She's a chemist at the University of California, Berkeley. She and her colleague, Daryl Seligman, he's an astronomer at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, they think Oumuamua's odd speed up might be due to it not being so weird after all. Instead, they think it might be a small but otherwise kind of typical comet rich in water ice. They recently published their findings in the journal Nature.
I think what we were hoping to do here was to provide sort of a scenario that could explain the behavior that was seen without sort of invoking any exotic physics or chemistry.
So the idea here is that Oumuamua was made of dusty water ice, just like the comets we see in our own neighborhood all the time. Then, During its journey between star systems, cosmic rays bombarded the object and broke some of that water ice to form molecular hydrogen.
This is not like crystalline ice where it's a very compact, ordered structure. It's amorphous, so it means that it has these big sort of pores or kind of gaps within the structure of the water ice.
But that ice softened up in sunlight as Oumuamua passed by our star, and the hydrogen was able to break out, triggering that non-gravitational acceleration. Meanwhile, the ice held on to the dust that astronomers otherwise would have seen from the outgassing.
Nice and neat, very convenient. So how convinced are scientists by this new idea?
It's really tricky to say. Some people think that the math doesn't work out. Some people still say there should have been visible signs of outgassing. And worst of all, we'll definitely never know for sure.
We have frustratingly few observations on the properties of Oumuamua. It would be difficult to prove anything for sure about Oumuamua.
But you can't keep astrochemists down.
I think certainly excited to keep an eye out for future interstellar visitors.
And we're excited too. Thank you for listening to Cosmos Quickly. Our show is produced by Jeff Delisio, Talika Bose, and Kelso Harper. Our music was composed by Dominic Smith.
Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And for more science news, go to scientificamerican.com.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
In a mental health emergency, why are only the police called and not mental health professionals? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. Recently, when 31-year-old Najee Seabrooks of Paterson, New Jersey, locked himself in a bathroom and was threatening to harm himself, claiming he had 3 knives and a gun, the police were called. As reported in the New York Times, during the hours-long ordeal that followed with Seabrooks in a bathroom and the police outside the door, Seabrooks was texting members of a harm reduction collective that he had been working for. He asked for their help, saying, "I need to hear your voices. I need to see your faces." And Seabrooks' colleagues came to the apartment building and showed the messages to the police, but the police wouldn't let them participate. Rather, a police unit came with high-powered firearms and helmets. Seabrooks peeked out and saw them. Afterwards, the project director said, "Showing a gun to a person going through a mental health crisis like this only increases paranoia and fear." When Seabrooks exited the bathroom and lunged at the police with a knife, they said, "They shot him, and he died." The state attorney general's office is investigating. Hopefully, the investigation can address the question why in Paterson, like many cities and towns across the country, only armed police and not mental health professionals are called to respond to mental health emergencies. How does that make any sense? The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1917. That was the day that the United States declared war on Germany and entered World War I. The war had been raging since 1914, but the U.S. did not enter the conflict until 1917. Dubbed the War to End All Wars, the conflict transformed the work experience for many women. As men went off to fight, industries looked to women to fill the labor shortage. By the end of the war, 3 million new women workers had taken jobs in war industries and at work sites like food production facilities and textile mills. A year after the U.S. entered into the war, the Seattle Union Record described the impact on women workers, writing, there has been a sudden influx of women into such unusual occupations as bank clerks, ticket sellers, elevator operator, chauffeur, streetcar conductor, railroad track walker, section hand, locomotive wiper and oiler, locomotive dispatcher, block operator, drawbridge attendant, and employment in machine shops, steel mills, powder and ammunition factories, airplane works, boot blackening, and farming. The Department of Labor established the Women in Industry Service to address the needs of this growing women's workforce. After the war, the initiative was renamed in 1920 to the Women's Bureau. Its charge was to, quote, formulate standards and policies which shall promote the welfare of wage-earning women, improve their working conditions, increase their efficiency, and advance their opportunities for profitable employment. Yet after the war, many women were not able to keep their new jobs. Men returning from the battlefront expected women to return home and open up jobs for male workers.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We always begin, whether from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 44 degrees, expecting highs in the mid to upper 50s. Cloudy currently, and we'll have showers throughout the day. Winds out of the south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And looks like our daily rain totals come to about a half an inch. And then cloudy with periods of rain overnight. Lows in the mid-40s, winds light and variable, expecting about a quarter of inch of rain tonight. And then showers in the morning. And then partly cloudy in the afternoon with highs near 60, winds out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and another quarter inch of rain expected tomorrow and tomorrow night. Pollen is rated as none here in the town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 18 parts per million, but the daytime UV index has shot up into the high range at level 6. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.01 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles. And relative humidity is at 99%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that's known as the Weather Underground. London is 56 degrees with rain showers. Paris is 60 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 62 and sunny. Kyiv is 52 and cloudy. Kabul is 51 and clear. Hong Kong is 70 degrees with rain showers. Tokyo is 66 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 61 and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 51 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York is 58 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya. A little bit of spice in your life. Dateline, Geneva. The Swiss government said yesterday, Wednesday, that it plans to impose an automobile import tax on electric cars, which so far have been exempted from the charge starting next year. The governing federal council said the move was meant to counter a fall in income from the auto tax and is part of a wider plan to bolster public finances. The auto tax is a levy of 4% on the import value rather than the final sales price of vehicles. Electric cars have been exempted since it was introduced in 1997 in an effort to make them an attractive option. The government said the exemption is no longer necessary in view of a steady rise in the number of electric cars and the fact that their prices have come closer to those of cars with combustion engines. It said that the number of electric cars imported annually increased from about 8,000 to over 45,000 between 2018 and 2022, and they made up nearly 1/5 of all auto imports last year. That has meant a decrease in income from the auto tax. The government put last year's shortfall at about $85.7 million U.S., and forecasts that it will increase to between $100 and $130 million this year. Proceeds from the tax fund go to a fund that finances the maintenance of major roads and other traffic projects.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Sibia Rasu of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The capacity to burn coal for power went up in 2022 despite global promises to phase down the fuel that's the biggest source of planet-warming gases in the atmosphere, a report yesterday, Wednesday, found. The coal fleet grew by 19.5 gigawatts last year, enough to light up around 15 million homes, with nearly all newly commissioned coal projects in China, according to a report by Global Energy Monitor, an organization that tracks a variety of energy projects around the globe. That 1% increase comes at a time when the world needs to retire its coal fleet 4.5 times faster to meet climate goals. In 2021, countries around the world promised to phase down the use of coal to help achieve the goal to limit warming to 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. The more new coal projects come online, the steeper the cuts and commitments need to be in the future, said Flora Champenois, the report's lead author and the project manager for GEM's Global Coal Plant Tracker. New coal plants were added in 14 countries, and 8 countries announced new coal projects. China, India, Indonesia, Turkey, and Zimbabwe were the only countries that both added new coal plants and announced new projects. China accounted for 92% of all new coal project announcements. China added 26.8 gigawatts, and India added about 3.5 gigawatts of new coal power capacity to their electricity grids. China also gave clearance for nearly 100 gigawatts of new coal power projects, with construction likely to begin this year. But the long-term trajectory is still towards clean energy, said Shantanu Sivarastava, an energy analyst with the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, who is based in New Delhi. She said the pandemic and the war in Ukraine temporarily drove some nations toward fossil fuels. In Europe, where the Russian invasion of Ukraine meant a scramble for alternative energy sources and drought-stifled hydropower, the continent only saw a very minor increase in coal use. Others went the other way. There were significant shutdowns in the U.S. where 13 gigawatts of coal power was retired. It's one of 17 countries that closed up plants in the past year. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.